Welcome, everybody, to another edition. Whoa, Periscope land. Let me drag this out some more. And welcome, everybody, to another edition of In the Batter's Box. This is the NGSC Sports Baseball Weekly Show. John, I'm going to have to get myself set up here. And when I speak, ladies and gentlemen, here I am. I haven't even introduced or done anything. Remember, as always, of course, on our website at ngscsports.com, where you can catch current context, Tent, and all of our shows, of course. Back Outers 2 has joined us on Periscope. What's up, Back Outers 2? It's the NGSC Sports Baseball Show. I am Ralph Garcia, your host, along with my co-host, who I introduce now and bring on to the show, John Doucette. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Ralph, as always, good to be with you.
John, you know, it's always a pleasure here. I'm still getting myself set up around here. But John, you know, the baseball season ended. That's what I heard. I heard the baseball season ended. And, you know, at that point, as people say all the time, well, it's the off season now. There's nothing going on. Not true, folks, because everybody knows that in sports. And, John, while I'm talking here on Periscope land, I'm having a difficult time setting up my computer, so People in Periscope land are watching me piddle, but I think I'm finished piddling, folks. And, well, we're going to start off our baseball show. Folks, we may be getting a guest this evening, Christopher Lacey from Fansided. We're going to talk some baseball with him. Matter of fact, he may want to just hang out with us. But without further ado, as always, John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Ralph. It's good to be here.
Yeah, John, I didn't want to forget about you. I mean, you know, I can't do it without you. Also can't do it, folks, without this big jug of, it says cranberry apple, but it is good old-fashioned water. John doesn't like me to drink anything else. And even when I'm drinking something else, I have to lie to John and not tell him because he's going to tell me it's no good for me. And, of course, he's right. But more importantly, folks, it is time for baseball talk. And John, we talked earlier, you hear the news, folks, of course. The off season of any sport starts the movement for next season. Firings of managers, coaches, trading of players, free agents, offers that are made to players and will they accept. And of course, John, starting with offers, there are a couple of qualifying offers, John, that you wanted to enlighten us on.
Well, usually when you get the qualifying offers, for the most part, the players that are offered these opportunities usually decline because they would rather go through the free agency route and see if they can't get a bigger contract and maybe even a longer contract. However, this year, Colby Rasmus of the Houston Astros has decided to accept the one-year $15.8 million qualifying offer that the Houston Astros have given him. Rasmus last year had 25 home runs and 61 RBIs for a team that I think surprised a lot of people and was in first place for most of the season, ended up making the playoffs, won their wild card game over the Yankees, and then lost in the division round to the Kansas City Royals. So the Astro payroll is about to go up a little bit based on this qualifying offer, but it does provide the Astros with a little longer period of time to potentially work out a longer deal with him.
Now, tell me something, John. You know, for me, you know, the off-season when it comes to qualifying offers, as we know about qualifying offers, what we know about them is mainly they're going to be rejected by players. Of course, for those who reject, there are those who accept. But I was pretty surprised by the Rasmus acceptance.
Well, I think the other part of it is that, you know, Rasmus may be thinking that the Astros are a team on the rise, and so he decided to stick around and see if, in fact, his thinking is true.
Well, you know, I like it for the simple fact that, you know, and you can't blame the players. It's not their fault, the money they can make, but we always say they always go for the money. And a lot of us, you know, well, me, you know, as a fan, wish at so many times that the player would think about their situation in Houston being a young baseball team, up-and-coming baseball team that, started out so hot, John, and made it to the postseason. They're looking to advance further and looking to take that youth and that talent they have to make that push. They want to be the next Chicago Cubs, the next New York Mets. They want to go into the postseason, go back to the postseason. They want to go deep into the postseason. And I think it was, it's pretty cool that he stayed in Houston.
Well, think of it this way. He's going to be paid next year $15.8 million. So if you are the Houston Astros and you want to negotiate a longer-term contract with him, that conversation is probably going to start at least $16 million.
Poor guy. Only $15.8 million, John. What will a baseball player do? I just now. Conversely, John, there are those who do not accept qualifying offers, and one of those names, of the many names that will probably not do it, of course, is New York Met playoff wonder, Superman, Mr. Daniel Murphy.
Well, again, I would think Daniel Murphy is a guy that's hoping to cash in on the playoff success that he has, and so the idea of taking the $15.8 million for 1 year didn't make much sense to him, I'm guessing, because he's hoping to create a market for himself that's going to land him a bigger contract with apparently somebody else.
Yeah, and so this thing is going to keep on going on. And, John, there were a couple of trades, starting with one that at first made me open my eyes.
Well, the general managers' meetings did take place in Boca Raton, Florida this week, and usually those meetings are pretty quiet. I mean, not much usually happens during the week that they're down there. They may set some things up that eventually boil over once you get to the winter meetings or even after the winter meetings. But this year, those general manager meetings ended up with 4 trades being made before it was all said and done, and the activity that took place during those meetings was rather surprising for a lot of people that watch these things on a regular basis.
Yeah, everybody wondered, with the world. It was no secret during the season that Murphy was probably not going to be with the Mets. Of course, some of that came into question when he had such a hot postseason, and who's going to question that? I mean, but of course he came back to earth in the World Series, John, and so.
Well, I think the thing about Daniel Murphy that was unexpected was that he ended up being the MVP of the National League Championship Series, and I would think that based on that particular accomplishment, that the price tag for Daniel Murphy went up. Now, he struggled during the World Series, as did most of those Mets that played against the Royals, but still, I would think that his price tag has gone up just based on what he did against the Cubs in that 4-game sweep.
And with Andrelton Simmons, what I thought right away was he's a defensive player. I mean, he's not. A lot of the guys you look at in trades are how big is the bat, what are their stats. Not to say this guy, but this guy's stats is in his glove, John. For Eric Abar and 2 minor leaguers in cash, I don't see the win here for the Braves.
Well, I'll tell you what, there are those that think that the Anaheim Angels did give up too much in the minor leaguers that you're talking about, Sean Newcomb and in Chris Ellis. Eric Ibar has been a durable player during his time with the Angels. He's played in 144 games over the past 7 years. That's what he's averaged. Hit .278 this year for the Angels. So in Eric Ibar, you're getting a guy that's going to go out there every day and perform for you. In Sean Newcomb, the Braves get what is now probably going to become their number 1 pitching prospect. At single A and at double A this year, he had a 2.85 earned run average in a little over 130 innings with a 1.27 whip. He's a big 6'5" left-handed pitcher. He's a New Englander. I mean, he went to Middleborough High School here in Massachusetts and played his college baseball at the University of Hartford in the America East Conference. So Sean Newcomb is someone that is somewhat known around these parts. And Chris Ellis, who pitched at Class A in the advanced for Inland Empire and also pitched in Arkansas, had a 3.09 earned run average in 140 and 2/3 innings. He walked only 4 batters and struck out 8.4 per 9 innings, and Ellis is 23 years of age. So the Braves get themselves a couple of young minor league pitchers that certainly have some upside. Eric Ibar, as I said, is a guy who goes out there every day and performs, and they give up Andrelton Simmons, who has won a Gold Glove. In fact, he's won a couple of them in 2013 and in 2014. He had a MLB best 94 defensive runs saved last year. Only hit 252, but that's, I guess, his glove is apparently more important than his bat. I think the interesting thing about this from the Angel perspective is the money that's involved. Simmons is going to earn $6 million next year, and then after that, over the remaining 4 years of his contract, his earnings will go up to $8 million to $11 million to $13 million, and then in the final year of the contract, it'll be $15 million. So there are thoughts out there that the Angels may have given up too much and may have taken back an awful lot in return.
Well, I guess we'll see. As they say, proof is in the pudding when these boys get up. Of course, they've got to make it up like all minor leaguers. I kind of always I have that thing, John, with these players, and we know that they're sure things, or just about sure things in the minor leagues that come up. They come up fast. But I like to see what these boys turn out. But hey, John, I leave that up to you as far as the brains of that, and we'll see if it just so turns out that the LA Angels, of course, get the benefit of this. There was some more trades, John. San Diego and Seattle had one.
That's kind of interesting. The San Diego Padres decided back on November 3rd that they were going to take care of Joaquin Benoit. They decided to exercise the club option that they had on Joaquin Benoit, and apparently they exercised the option so that they could then turn around and trade him to the Seattle Mariners for a couple of minor leaguers. Benoit has been a closer in the past. He's been a setup man in the past. And the Mariners look like they're trying to rebuild that bullpen from last year, and apparently they feel that Benoit could be a piece that helps them to attain that goal.
And as always, of course, the New York Yankees, they never stay quiet when they can, make some news. And so the Yankees been doing a little wheeling and dealing too, John?
Brian Cashman is already off and running, isn't he? The first move he made was acquiring Aaron Hicks, a switch-hitting outfielder from the Minnesota Twins, in exchange for a minor league catcher, John Ryan Murphy. It's an interesting trade in the sense that if you look at the way the Yankee outfield is presently constructed, Hicks would be the fourth outfielder on that squad, with Beltran, with Brett Gardner, and with Jacoby Ellsbury. So, Hicks at the moment has gone from being a starting outfielder for the Minnesota Twins to now being the fourth guy for the New York Yankees, although with the injury situations that the three guys that started, Gardner, Ellsbury, and Carlos Beltran, all went through last year, Hicks is probably going to get plenty of time in that Yankee outfield. And for John Ryan Murphy, it's an opportunity for him to potentially become that future, maybe even present, everyday catcher that the Twins are looking for, so that Joe Mauer can be the everyday first baseman in Minnesota. The Yankees also have themselves another minor league catching prospect that's doing very well in the Arizona Fall League. So Brian Cashman felt that John Ryan Murphy was somewhat expendable. He called this trade a good old-fashioned baseball trade.
And, you're not going to... And the Yankees know, and Cashman knows. If you're the Yankees, you got to get out front. You got to get started quickly. You can't... it's the Yankees. You don't want to find yourself behind the eight ball. Old man would flip in his grave when it comes to that. And it's just curious. It's always good to see what goes on there with the Yankees. Look, I'm a Met lover. I'm a Yankee hater. But, there's no question about it. When the New York Yankees are playing good baseball, they're making the playoffs, they're making moves, they're making noise, it just makes baseball more lively, John, even for a Red Sox fan.
Oh, absolutely it does. And I think that's what the tone of these general manager meetings was all about. It wasn't about the guys just getting together, maybe playing a little golf and talking a little business either in the morning or afternoon. These general managers went to Boca Raton to get something done, and it appears that some teams did, in fact, do that.
They went to get some sun, John.
Well, if they went to get some sun, they also got some business done while they were at it.
Yeah, apparently they did, John. You think so?
It certainly looks like it, and it sounds like it.
John, it's been quiet in free agent land, huh?
Well, and I think it's going to continue that way at least until the winter meetings show up in your backyard of Nashville.
Yeah, I wouldn't think there'd be any moves right there. And, I'm always, curious as to how this works when you basically know that standard operating procedures are the qualifying offers. There's going to be some of these trades that we've been seeing, but the big boys and the winter meetings seem to go hand in hand, at least the timing of it.
Yeah, I would think so, but it does appear that the winter meetings in Nashville are going to be very active, not only with free agents, but also apparently with trades as well. So I expect that those 4 or 5 days that baseball convenes on Nashville, it's going to be an active time.
And so we'll keep on paying attention, folks, of course, to all the things that are happening in the free agent world. The Hot Stove Tracker, of course, is on MLB.com, finding out what's going on, who's going where, who's not going somewhere, who's expected to go somewhere and doesn't go anywhere. And, of course, the big names will eventually happen. As John just said, the GM meetings have taken place. Some of these little moves are happening. The Yankees, of course, always, being out in front of the news. And we'll keep paying attention to that. In the meantime, John, there's a story that you and I were talking about. As a matter of fact, during the week, as John and I prep, we do prep all week long for the show. That's why it sounds like we know what we're talking about. Or at least sounds like I know what I'm talking about, because he knows what he's talking about. And one of the things we talked about, John, we remember that. And it's the way of the world for guys our age now, as it is for everybody that was our age at different eras. The improvement of modern science, of modern medicine, of transportation, of communication, of all kinds of sorts of things. And you and I remember back from a time when you said the phrase Tommy John surgery. Basically, if that was a car, it was time to buy a new car because that car was gone. And with a baseball player, Tommy John surgery definitely ended a season. And to our beliefs or our understandings, basically, that was it for a career. But these days, John, Tommy John, the injury, the surgery, the elbow, the injury leading to the surgery, is not as it used to be. And we have a story that of a player, right, John?
Well, Lance Lynn of the St. Louis Cardinals is now the next guy that has gone through the Tommy John process. He was on his right elbow, and it was done this past Tuesday. He's going to miss the entire 2016 season. He had his ulnar collateral ligament repaired. He also had the ulnar nerve repaired and also had some bone chips removed from that right elbow. So it looks like a complete cleaning of that elbow was done by the surgeons that took care of this. It does lead the Cardinals into an interesting situation because now you wonder if John Lackey, who was a part of that rotation last year and who is a free agent, now is maybe somebody that the Cardinals will try and bring back a bit more seriously than maybe they would have had Lance Lynn not gone through this procedure.
And now, like we were saying now, John, listening to you, here we go. Same thing as the new way. You didn't say, all you said was, you'll miss the entire 2016 season. Didn't hear you say anything like we used to hear. Now, what's the possibilities of this guy ever pitching again? What the damage is? Will he ever be the same again? John, it's different also now when these guys come back from Tommy John surgery. Some of them are coming back stronger than ever.
Absolutely. They do come back good as new, don't they? And maybe that ends up being the case for Lance Lynn as well, based on everything that's been repaired in his right elbow. Look, modern medicine being what it now is today, they've really made some serious strides in being able to allow these guys to go back out there and pitch again. We know about the stress that takes place on the elbow and on the shoulder with throwing the amount of pitches that you throw in the innings, and that doesn't include the side sessions, it doesn't include spring training, it doesn't include warm-up pitches, what have you. There's a lot of stress that takes place on these particular body parts, and modern medicine has found a way to repair these body parts and allow these guys to go back out there and essentially earn a pretty good living.
Yeah, so we do wish Lance Lynn well on his recovery, and again, the curiosity to see how he comes back. You know the type of pitcher that he's been. What changes from his pitching style? You know, when you look at these pitchers, John, and the beauty is the different deliveries. Although the basic mechanics of throwing a baseball is the same, each one has their different delivery. You see, for example, Johnny Cueto, how he's those hesitation moves and a little jerks. I don't know what that's all about, but what I was getting at, you know, the wear and tear and the wear and tear, it makes me wonder sometimes, and I don't mean this out there in audio and video land in any bad way, but man, some guys who aren't doing that great might want to get some Tommy John surgery to upgrade their careers.
Well, I'm not sure that that's something that everybody would like to go through. I mean, let's face it, you're talking about a year's worth of rehab, which can be pretty boring and pretty tedious in the whole bit, as Lance Lynn's about to go through. And let's face it, the shoulder was not made to throw a baseball that way, that hard anyways. So, and the elbow too, I might add. So, you know, when these guys go through these particular issues with their arms, it's really not surprising. You do wonder why and how some of these guys have the kind of careers that they do in terms of longevity, just based on the wear, the tear, the stress that's put on these arms pretty much on a regular basis. And let's face it, you don't have all that much time to recuperate from what you put these shoulders and elbows through. I mean, here we are halfway through the month of November. 2.5 months from now, pitchers and catchers are going to be reporting to spring training sites in Florida and Arizona, which means that these pitchers are going to start up all over again.
Yeah, and it comes right back, So we'll see what happens, you know. And again, at least now we know these days that when we hear the phrase Tommy John surgery, you know, we don't frown and, oh, this guy's in trouble. Let's see, John. Let's check a little something out, John, here. John, I'm going to go ahead and go to our break early, as we have a story we want to discuss a little bit about. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to In the Batter's Box, the NGSC Sports Baseball Weekly Show. I am your host, Ralph Garcia, joined, of course, as always, every week by my co-host, my friend, John Doucette. You can find John on Twitter. You can find John on Twitter at Radio Doucette. You can find me at El Rafito. Oh, sneeze. Minus the sneeze. El Rafito 322. That's ELRAFITO 322. And of course, the Twitter handle for the company, of course, as you already know, it is at NGSC Sports. Check out our content at ngscsports.com. Check out all the new the scouting focuses are up. Josh Zimmer, Montel Hardy, Hill Gilbert giving you their scouting focus week 11. Also, guys, you've known that we were privileged and honored to be able to do the play-by-play for Nassau Community College football. Now, and I better drop this little screen here, John, so I can read this young man's name and know exactly what the heck I'm about to say. Folks, give me a second here. Take it, as we say in Spanish, cógelo con take it easy. Okay, I gotta go ahead and find this stuff. Okay, Jarzinka. All right, here we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to make the announcement here. Again, NGSC Sports and I-95 continue the broadcast work, as we now are joined by Joey Jarzinka. It's at Big Joe _95. He calls himself, and he is, the voice of NCC basketball, NCC Lions basketball. We did the first call last night. John, you want to tell the folks what a nice call that was by Big Joe?
It was a very nice call, and not only that, it sounded like the gym was full of people.
Yeah, it sounded like there were some folks out there. So we should be doing tomorrow's another game, and Big Joe is a student interning here at NGSC Sports, doing the play-by-play. And for those of you guys that know me out there, you'll understand when I say, hey, the boy was damn good, seriously. Surprised me and John completely. So The player goes up. It's not there now. So you'll see the widget that says NCC Basketball Live. It'll go back up tomorrow. As there's another game. I wish I could tell you what time, but I wasn't prepared here, okay? So
I believe it's 1 p.m. is the game tomorrow afternoon.
IQ. See? That's why he's on the show. Not because I like him. Because he fixes my screw-ups. Like he said, 1 o'clock Eastern time. And there'll be the play-by-play again. We'll continue to do the play-by-play for the season. Definitely all the home games for Nassau Community College basketball. Working on getting the coach. Coach, are you out there? Are you watching on Spreaker, Coach? Is that you, Coach? Like we say down south, holla at me. We got to do the coaches show. But of course, remember, everybody, it's ngscsports.com. And as I always like to say at this time, back to the show. John, they call him the base burglar. National League record 938 stolen bases, including 118 in 1974, 3,023 hits. There was a trade from the Chicago Cubs in 1964 for a pitcher named Ernie Broglio. And this man went on to hit 391 with 4 home runs, 10 steals in 21 World Series games. It was John, I kid you not, I have goosebumps. My hairs are standing because when you think, when we talk sports and everybody knows me that hears me out there, I love to joke and play. But when it comes time to talk serious sports, this man was one of the greatest players you could ever watch in baseball. It was such a pleasure to watch him every time. You never knew what was going to happen on the base paths. And not only could the man steal all the bases, but he'll get up there and he'll give you hits too. So he's going to hit the ball, get on the base, steal the base, and of course, we're talking about Lou Brock. John, you have a story that's gone out here on Lou Brock?
Yeah, unfortunately, he recently underwent surgery it was for amputation of his left leg just below the knee. It's because of an infection that was related to a diabetic condition. I first saw Lou Brock play in 1967 when the Cardinals and the Red Sox played in the World Series. That was my first experience to seeing him play and seeing the way he could play in the outfield and his ability to run the bases, not only steal bases, but the way he just ran the bases. He was quite a ball player, and it's unfortunate that this has happened because, as you say, he's a Cardinal legend and a Hall of Famer, and we do wish Lou Brock all the best.
Absolutely. John, we have a caller on the line. It just may be our guest. Caller, is this Chris Lacey?
Yeah, this is Chris.
Chris, what a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much, Chris. I believe you are from... Well, Chris, why don't you tell us? Chris, welcome to In the Batter's Box. I am Ralph Garcia, the host and CEO of NGSC Sports, along with, of course, the man who brought you on the show, John Doucette. Chris, tell us where you're from and where everybody can find you on social media.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. My name is Chris Lacey. You can find me online at AECanada12.
And, Chris, we were just talking about, I don't know how far you go back, Chris, but John and I go back about 110 years when it comes to sports. And we were talking about the unfortunate situation here with Lou Brock getting his amputated 76 years old. Did you get to see Lou Brock play?
No, I never seen him play, but I've seen some of his stats, and I know he's one of the most revered Cardinal players of all time. So it is sad that he had to have part of his leg cut off. But I know Brock was a great player during the time.
It was fun, man. It was fun. You got two old timers here. Hey, we were just talking about, for example, Chris, the difference these days. Back in our time when we heard the phrase Tommy John surgery, that was it, dude. It wasn't just your season done. Basically, your career was done. And what a difference in the marvels of medicine now. When a guy like Lance Lynn unfortunately has to go through it, but may come back a better pitcher like some have.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, you got some baseball stuff you want to talk about. Hit us with some baseball stuff, because I'm dying to hear John and you go into a little thing here while I just sit back in baseball heaven.
Okay, some news today. 3 players accepted qualifying offers today. Colby Rasmus, Matt Wieters, and Brett Anderson. So I wasn't surprised by Anderson, because I didn't think he would get that good of a deal on the open market. But I was surprised that Wieters accepted. I figured on the free agent market he could probably get maybe a 2 or 3 year deal. But I guess he opted to just take the 1 year deal, close to $16 million.
Chris, is it possible in Matt Wieters' case that the reason why he took that deal is to give himself another year to potentially create a market that eventually does give him a better and bigger deal?
That could be the case, because if Wieters actually have like a breakout year and actually helps the Orioles contend in the AL East, I could actually set him up for a bigger payday for next year, because I believe the free agent class for next year, in terms of catchers, isn't that strong. So a big year for Wieters could actually help him out going into next year's free agent period.
And what did you think of the general managers' meetings? The fact that there were trades made down there. Usually that's a 4-day exercise that really doesn't get much done, but appears this year that things were done.
Yeah, the trade that caught my eye was the one where the Braves traded Simmons to the Angels for 2 very good pitching prospects. Simmons is one of the best defensive infielders in baseball, but the Braves want to get more pitchers. They've been stockpiling arms, and the guy they got from the Angels, Newcomb, he's a left-hander at the Angels drafted last year out of the University of Harvard. And I think Newcomb could be an ace to them within a year or two. But the Braves didn't like Simmons back, because his numbers were in the decline. So I guess they thought it was better to trade him now before it gets too pricey to keep him.
As I mentioned earlier in the show, Sean Newcomb in particular is from Massachusetts, Middleborough High School, and as you said, went to the University of Hartford. And let's face it, 6'5" left-handed pitchers are not something you find very often.
No, they're not. So even though the Braves did lose a lot in Simmons, they get a guy who could possibly be an ace, so they could pair with Shelby Miller in maybe 2 or 3 years.
Now, let's look at it from the money point of view. Simmons has got 4 years, well, actually 5 years still left in his contract. Eric Aybar is going to make $8.5 million this year. It does appear that the Angels were not afraid of the money that is going to be acquired by taking Simmons on.
No, because the Angels, they already signed Trout to a big year, so the money side for the Angels is not really that much of an issue, because Angels going to Artie Moreno is known for spending money, so them taking on money is not really a problem at all.
And what about the Yankees? Brian Cashman is already busy. He's already made a couple of moves. The Aaron Hicks trade with the Minnesota Twins. I find that a bit of an interesting trade in the sense that Aaron Hicks right now becomes the 4th outfielder on that team. Is that a prelude to more things that are coming?
The Yankees might trade Brett Gardner, but I don't see any reason why they would want to trade Gardner, because even though Gardner didn't perform as well as he did during the second half of the season, Gardner is still a solid outfielder. He's a great leadoff hitter. He still stays he can be a table setter for the Yankees for next season. So it was kind of odd that they traded for Hicks, and I'd be surprised to see if they trade Gardner. The only reason I could see them trading Gardner is to possibly acquire some more pitching. But other than that, I really don't see why they would want to move Gardner.
What about Carlos Beltran? I realize there's really no trade market for Carlos Beltran, but is that a guy that maybe the Yankees might try and find a way to get out from under and provide Hicks with the opportunity to be an everyday outfielder?
Yeah, Beltran, he's a solid hitter, but if you do trade him, he'd have to go to an AL team where he could be the DH, because trade him to the NL wouldn't make much sense, because I don't think Beltran can play an output for 100 or 120 game season. I think the best you could possibly get out of Beltran, if he's as healthy, is somewhere between 70 and 80 teams in the outfield.
And the Padres were also rather busy. deciding to exercise the club option on Joaquin Benoit, and then they turned around and trade him to the Mariners. It does appear that the Mariners were looking to start the process of rebuilding that bullpen. Benoit has been a closer. He's been a setup guy. He's been really all over bullpens that he's been in. The Padres, I mean, they went for it last year with all the moves that they made. It didn't pan out, and so now they're beginning the process of paring payroll. Is this just the beginning of the Padres trying to shrink as much payroll from that roster as they can?
As we're talking, the Red Sox have just acquired Craig Kimbrell from the Padres.
Wow.
Yeah. The return is unknown, but yeah. So the Red Sox are going to get Kimbrell. I assume the Padres are going to get some prospects in the return. Possibly they could get Jackie Bradley Jr. or one of the plethora of pitching prospects that the Red Sox have. But yeah, Kimbrell's gone.
Chris, I'll tell you this from reports that we'd had up here. Reports that were in the Boston Globe, for instance, that Jackie Bradley Jr. was somebody that was sought by a lot of teams when Dave Dombrowski was down there at the GM meetings. The Red Sox had really made it rather known that Chapman from Cincinnati was somebody that they were very interested in and were in the process of doing their homework on. I do wonder if they just decided that based on that homework that Kimbrell became a better option than Chapman.
Yeah, I think Kimbrell's got a more proven track record. He was a great closer with the Braves. He struggled early last season with the Padres, but as the season continued, he actually returned to his previous form. So I think just because of Kimbrell's body of work, he was the safer bet for the Red Sox to take a chance on acquiring.
I'll ask you this, Chris: should Red Sox fans be worried? I mean, Dave Dombrowski does have a reputation of using the minor league talent to acquire major league players to get that 25-man roster back in playoff contention. And let's face it, in Boston, that's really what it's all about. But should Red Sox fans be worried that the minor league system is going to get depleted sooner rather than later?
No, because like you said, Dombrowski has a history of building a winner, and these young players are prospects. So some of them pan out and some don't. So if you can use some of these players to get proven players that don't cost the team too much money, I would say it's worth it. But there are some players that are like untouchable that you need to keep around. So it all depends on what players Dombrowski actually gets rid of, and it's also important that he keep the core players that will actually help the Red Sox continue not only this year but also into the future as well.
So what's the future for the San Diego Padres?
Padres, I would say, depending on what they get in the Kendall deal, and also they need to acquire some pitching, but they also need to acquire someone in the middle infield. Because when Sidney was first being talked about, I thought the Padres was going to be the team to get him, because the Padres need middle infield help even more so than they need pitching.
Was the Matt Kemp idea a mistake? Do you think the Padres now second guess that particular idea?
I think when he was struggling, they were, but during the second half of the season, Kemp started to actually perform like the player he was in LA. So I think if Kemp has another bad year, then they may start to second guess that deal. But I think it all depends on what kind of season Matt Kemp has and if he can stay healthy. Because if Kemp can stay healthy, he's one of the best outfielders in terms of production in the National League.
Do you expect the winter meetings in Nashville to be as busy as I tend to think they are, with not only free agents signing, but also with more trades being made?
Yeah, I think the Nationals, they may trade Strasburg. I'm not sure to what team, but I also think the Nationals will make an attempt to possibly sign Greinke and maybe try to re-up on Jordan Zimmerman, depending on the price of Greinke.
Are the Nationals concerned about Strasburg's health, and that's why he's all of a sudden started to be heard in these potential trade opportunities?
Yeah, I think it's his health, because Strasburg had a bunch of injuries last season. He just had a surgery. So I think if Strasburg stayed on the mound more, there'll be no talk of trade. But I think now that since his health issues have actually prevented him from staying on the mound, the Nationals are trying to gauge are trying to gauge the interest of what they could actually pick up by actually trading him.
What do you think of Dusty Baker becoming the Nationals' new manager?
I like it. I thought Bud Black was a better fit because Bud Black actually knows how to manage bullpens, but I have no problem with Dusty Baker. Baker was a great manager for the Giants. He managed the Rays at one time, so I think the signing of Baker was a solid move. And also, after the move, Bryce Harper actually tweeted out saying he was pleased with the decision to hire Baker. So I think Baker and Harper are going to get along fine, and I think Baker will have more control of that clubhouse than Matt Williams did.
Well, there's no question that Matt Williams lost that clubhouse. I would agree with that. Now, Bud Black, does he now sit back and wait for the first firing that takes place once the season arrives?
Well, actually, Bud Black is actually one of the four candidates for the Dodgers job. It's between him, Gabe Kapler, Dave Roberts, and Dan Erstad. So I think Bud Black still has a chance. And even if he does not get hired by the Dodgers, I think he'll just wait. If someone does get fired, I think Bud Black will be the first candidate for many teams because of what he did with the pitching in San Diego, and because of his knowledge of managing the bullpen.
I guess my question with the Dodgers would be, based on that payroll, even though Zach Greinke may or may not return, who knows, what kind of a manager are they looking for?
I would say one that just knows how to manage a team, one that also commands the respect of his players, and one that just makes better decisions. Because there were some questionable decisions that management made during his time in the Dodgers, during the regular season, and also during the postseason. So I guess they just want someone who just makes better decisions, and maybe someone who actually expresses the analytical side of baseball as well.
Is Yasier Puig in trouble? Is he somebody that the Dodgers also may actively try and trade at the winter meetings?
I think they'll try to. It all depends on how other teams view Puig, because when he was first brought up, he was such a great hitter, but then after his rookie season, he just didn't perform as well. So I think they'll try to trade him, but I don't think they're going to get much for him.
Now, the Hall of Fame nominees have come out, and let's face it, Ken Griffey Jr., Trevor Hoffman, those would be the two guys that are certainly going to get in. Now, I don't think there's any question about that. But is there a third guy in that group that gets the opportunity to go in with them?
I think along with Hoffman and Griffey, I think Billy Wagner can get in on his first try. I would be surprised if Wagner does not get in.
Okay. Look, I think that, for Major League Baseball, I think getting more than the two obvious ones in, I think is a great thing. And let's face it, last year's Hall of Fame induction ceremonies with the four of them, I think was a great day for Major League Baseball. And with a lot of these guys that have been, on the ballot for so long, their window of opportunity is really starting to close.
Yeah, actually, I believe this is Mark McGwire's last year of eligibility. So if he doesn't get in this year, then he's not going to get in at all.
Nope.
And I was going to say Clemens and Bonds too. I mean, their window of opportunity is really starting to close as well.
Nope and nope.
Yeah, it is.
I heard Ralph say no and no, so I know why too.
We already knew. We enjoyed the display back in the days. We didn't mind watching the balls going out of the ballpark. Major League Baseball damn sure didn't mind watching the balls going out of the ballpark and all the money that was being made from that. But subsequently, we all knew after that, these guys weren't going to go either H, O, or the F, either one. And let's not forget the guy in Periscope land. I'm illustrating it on Periscope. See my finger? Let's not forget the guy that said, I did not. I would never. I don't think Rafael Palmeiro is going to see an H, O, or an F either.
He's not. No,
I agree with that too. Yeah, you're correct. I would agree with that.
Embarrassment. Hey, Chris, my questions to you are, number one, we watched the Kansas City Royals a year ago prior to this World Series run make it to the playoffs and go to the World Series and, of course, lose in the World Series. But at that point right there, the first question that comes to mind in the sports world is, well, was it a fluke? So the Royals come out in 2015 and basically politely saying kicked everybody's ass during the regular season. And they make their march to a place that, as they said and they said over and over again, that they expect it to be the 2015 World Series. Now, mind you, Chris, let me make something very clear. I live and breathe my New York Mets. I am a New York Met fan. I have been a Met fan since 4 years before I was born. So I'm a true fan. But the Kansas City Royals put on a display of contact hitting that I haven't seen in maybe forever. It was unbelievable that it didn't matter what pitch count, it didn't matter where the pitch, it didn't matter how hard, how slow, how high, how low, they were going to make contact. And my question to you now is, we've watched the Royals go from what to yeah. And now, can they do that again?
I think they can. If they re-sign Ben Zobrist, who was a key to their lineup during the postseason, and also after they acquired him during the trade deadline, and also they have to re-sign Alex Gordon. If they get those two guys back, I see no reason why the Royals cannot get back to the World Series and do it again.
And it was a killer for me. You say Alex Gordon's name. Well, hit drive by Alex Gordon, and this game is tied, and the World Series was over for my New York Mets. But speaking of other teams, the Chicago Cubs. We can Steve Bartman all we want. We can 100 and God knows how many years all we want. You know something, Chris? When I watched the 2015 Chicago Cubs, I wasn't watching the 14, the 13, the 10, the 9, the 7, the 6, the 1, the 99. These young kids, for me, I've always said it in all the years I've been doing this. A winning organization breeds winning. They just win. And losers, well, they know losing, so they just lose. And it's not a reflection on the players themselves so much as it is an organizational thing. But these young Chicago Cubs of 2015 did not appear to buy into any of that past crap. Give me your outlook on the 2016 Chicago Cubs.
The Cubs are in great position. I think they're going to be challenged by not only the Cardinals but also the Pirates in the division. But I think for the offseason, they've got to focus on getting some starting pitching to pair with Jake Arrieta and John Lester. So I would expect the Cubs to either try to sign either David Price or Zach Greinke, and maybe add a second-tier starting pitcher like maybe either Mike Leake or possibly even Giovanni Gallardo.
And how about the best off-season? John and I have been talking about it all year. How about the best off-season acquisition in baseball before the 2015, and it did not involve a player, in Joe Madden to the Cubs?
Yeah, bringing on Madden, he had continued to change the culture of the Cubs, and he was a great manager with the Rays because of his managerial approach and style, and then he just brought that over to the Cubs. So I think having Madden is a huge bonus. He knows how to manage young players and actually get the best out of his lineup.
John, anything else for Chris?
The only thing I have that I would ask for with Chris is the Miami Marlins now have an interesting situation with their ace pitcher Jose Fernandez, and the fact that they don't want Scott Boras involved in negotiations. Apparently, they feel like he's sticking his nose where it doesn't belong.
No.
They spent all that money for Stanton. They even did it for Christian Yelich. Why all of a sudden are they now having a problem with who Fernandez is being represented by?
Well, because Boras has a history of not re-signing contracts. He prefers to let his players test the free agent market, and I guess the Marlins they would just prefer to just negotiate with them Fernandez without on board them his nose, because the Marlins, if Jose Fernandez hits the open market I don't think the Marlins can.
Well, Chris, we want to thank you so much. Please, Chris, tell everybody where they can find you again.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at 8UCAN12. That is 8UCAN12.
Chris, we want to thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Lacey. Chris, you have yourself a good evening, sir, and thank you so much for joining us.
All right, guys, thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
And that, of course, was Chris Lacey, joining us here on In the Batter's Box this evening. And
wow, he even gave us the scoop.
Hey, John, repeat that scoop, John.
Well, the scoop was that the Red Sox have acquired Greg Kimball from the San Diego Padres for apparently some minor leaguers.
See, there's always something going on here, folks, at NGSC Sports. John, we're going to finish it up, of course, with our awards, the beginning of the awards season. And, of course, John and I have noticed that the Silver Sluggers and the Gold Gloves have come out. John, let's start with the Gold Glove winners.
Well, look, you talked about the Kansas City Royals. And in the American League, the Gold Gloves came out, and the Royals had two. They had Salvador Perez as their catcher, made it. Eric Hosmer, their first baseman, made it as a Gold Glove winner. And Alcides Escobar made it at shortstop from the Kansas City Royals. Also making it was Jose Altuve from the Astros at second base. Manny Machado from the Orioles at third. And the interesting one here is that Yoenis Cespedes made it.
Very
but
interesting.
He made it as a Detroit Tiger, not as a Met. He made it in the American League.
Very interesting. Did not get the nod in the National League, as John just mentioned, the American League. In the National League, of course, it was Yadier Molina for the Cardinals at catcher. At first base, Paul Goldschmidt of the Diamondbacks. D. Gordon of the Marlins got the nod at second base. At third base, it was Nolan Arenado of the Rockies. I should say that properly. Brandon Crawford, shortstop for the New York Giants. San Francisco Giants, folks. Starling Marte. Hey, better watch what you say for the Pittsburgh Pirates in left field. Center fielder A.J. Pollock, of course, of the Diamondbacks. Jason Hayward of the Cardinals gets the nod at right field, and the pitcher to win the Gold Glove, Zach Greinke, of soon to not be of the Dodgers. And you're right, John. Very interesting that Yoenis Cespedes get a Gold Glove in the American League. And for me, that would be, well, then what did he do differently? And I won't lie, I'm not looking at the stats. What did he do differently with the Mets in the National League?
That would be an interesting question to potentially ponder, wouldn't it? Why he got more votes as an American League outfielder than apparently he did as a National League outfielder.
And, of course, the defensive awards were set out, John. The Wilson Defensive Player of the Year awards, which are determined using a formula that combines traditional defensive stats with advanced metrics, as well as the data logged by baseball experts working the scouting service, Inside Edge. And the Defensive Player of the Year at catcher, no surprise here, John, Buster Posey of the San Francisco Giants. Paul Goldschmidt, D. Gordon at second, Arenado at third, and of course the aforementioned earlier, Andrelton Simmons of the Atlanta Braves. Oops, not of the Atlanta Braves anymore. Starling Marte, of who I don't like, the Pittsburgh Pirates, in left field. Kevin Pillar, the Blue Jays center fielder. Jason Hayward. And last but not least, the Defensive Player of the Year at pitcher was not Zach Greinke, but Jacob deGrom.
It's interesting. What's the difference between the Gold Glove winners and the defensive winners?
Now, John, that is something that I was going to ask you. You're not supposed to ask me that question, John.
Well, I can't give you the answer. I have no idea, but I do find it interesting that you had a lot of names on there that are also Gold Glove winners, but then you had some names on there that weren't Gold Glove winners.
And what's the difference They say that this is determined using a formula that combines traditional defensive stats with advanced metrics. So what's the Gold Glove done? Isn't the Gold Glove one heck of a defensive machine in baseball?
I would think, although a lot of people now seem to think that the Gold Glove winner is really based more on offense than defense.
Now, you definitely got me going on that one. Before we close it out, folks, we got more awards that have been handed out. And that would be the Silver Slugger Awards. John, give us those awards.
Well, in the National League, it was Paul Goldschmidt at first base from Arizona, Dee Gordon of the Marlins at second base, Nolan Ariando of Colorado at third, and Brandon Crawford of the Giants at short. The outfield group was Andrew McCutchen of Pittsburgh, Bryce Harper of the Nationals, and Carlos Gonzalez of Colorado. Buster Posey of the Giants was the catcher, and Madison Bumgarner wins a Silver Slugger as the pitcher.
Yeah, if there's a pitcher that should get a Silver Slugger in baseball, that would be the Mad Bum.
He would be the guy, yes, he would be the guy.
Yep, and in the American League, at first base, it's Miguel Cabrera of the Tigers. Jose Altuve of the Astros gets the nod at second. At third, it's Josh Donaldson of the Toronto Blue Jays. At shortstop, Xander Bogaerts?
No, Xander Bogaerts of the Red Sox, yes. He won the Silver Slugger at shortstop. The Red Sox have had very few Silver Slugger winners.
Yeah, Mike Trout, no surprise, of the Angels. Nelson Cruz of the Mariners and J.D. Martinez of the Tigers forms the outfield of Silver Sluggers. And Kendrys Morales, D.H., wins the Silver Slugger, giving more credence, John, to the Mad Bum in the National League, huh?
Oh, absolutely. But you know what's interesting here is that Cespedes wins a Gold Glove, and yet he didn't win a Silver Slugger.
And with the stats that he had, how do you not?
It is interesting, isn't it?
You know, weirder things happen in sports, John. We got a lot of questions. We seem to have gotten a small list of questions from these answers of these awards.
You know, Brian McCann of the Yankees, okay, I get that at the catching position because really Salvador Perez's offensive numbers were not as good as Brian McCann's, but Cespedes is interesting.
Very interesting, very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, we're winding winding down another edition, of course, of In the Batter's Box, the NGSC Sports Baseball Weekly. I, of course, am your host, Ralph Garcia, joined by my co-host, John Doucette. This evening, as John told me for a couple of days before the show, we had a jam-packed show here tonight, folks. We talked trades. We talked qualifying offers. We slipped in a little bit of free agency. We had Chris Lacey on the show to join us to talk some baseball. We talked Lance Lynn and what he's going through now with Tommy John surgery. And let's see how Lynn comes back after a year off in the 2016 season. We have talked about Lou Brock. One of the all-time greats, one of the best base stealers of all time, tops in the National League in the history of baseball, and surgery that, of course, had his leg amputated. Part of his leg amputated due to a diabetic condition. And we closed out the show, of course, with the Silver Sluggers, defensive players, and the Silver Sluggers, defensive player, and Gold Glovers. John, it's happening. See, I can't tell the difference between a Gold Glover and a defensive player. I couldn't even say the two.
I know. It is interesting how you would come up with two different awards for basically the same concept.
Yeah, a glove, and your ability to play defense in the baseball field.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Who would have thunk it? Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you again so much out there in Periscope land, here live on Spreaker at ngscsports.com. Join me and John and I, with proper English, next Friday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, as we always are, right here on Periscope and live on Spreaker on ngscsports.com for In the Batter's Box. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you in Periscope land. Yo, peace. Thank you, folks. No questions this week. Ladies and gentlemen, here in Spreakerland, we want to thank you for joining us again, and join us next week. Remember us, of course, on the website. It's ngscsports.com. And as I like to end it, we holla at y'all.